I think that's all I need to cover for the CHAD agreement. Did I even introduce myself? I'm Caroline Danda. I'm one of the co-hosts, and Kristen Stuppy is our other co-host of the parent support group. And we've got lots and lots of upcoming events. Well, Adam, while you get your slides going, I am going to introduce you. So we're so excited to have Adam Tilove today. He is one of the newest board members of ADHDKC. He's also an executive coach and founder of Neurodisciplined, and he's spent 11 years as head of school. So he's seen firsthand working with kids, working with schools, and how bright kids can kind of struggle. And I believe that he's going to share a little bit about he was one of those bright kids that struggled. So he's got both the professional and the personal experience that's going to really help inform us. And he's also the author of Split Seconds, Stop Stalling, Start Doing. So we're so excited to have you here, Adam. So without further ado, I'm going to let you take it away, and I'm going to put myself on.
All right, off we go. Can you hear me? Everyone got a thumbs up there. Fantastic. Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Tilove. I want to thank you all for coming and showing up on a weeknight. So it's busy times, and you're here. So that says a lot about you. Here's the name of this is the Smart Kid Paradox. And so what is the paradox? I think the paradox for me in this is that ADHD for smart kids is sometimes harder than it is for kids who aren't as naturally intelligent, right? You would think that just being like naturally intelligent is a huge benefit. Add the intelligence to the ADHD and it helps you get by. And that's true, but it also it's got some traps to it. It's unforeseen difficulties, and that's the paradox. So that's what I want to get into. So who am I to say this? I'm a certified coach. I'm an author. I'm a former teacher. I spent most of my career in the classroom. I also, as Caroline said, was spent 11 years as a head of 2 different schools. So I have a lot of experience working with kids. I also have ADHD myself, as we'll get into. I'm the parent of a kid who is neurodiverse. He has ADHD, nonverbal learning disorder, dyspraxia, dyslexia, dyscalculia. I'm learning a lot through him. And I'll also just add here that I am sober now for 13 years. And I think that's just important because people with ADHD have a much higher propensity towards addiction. I don't know if you know that. We have I think a 600% higher chance of being addicted to marijuana. So something to know as we build our knowledge about ADHD and the ways in which we compensate. So I'm my own first client. I built all of this to understand myself, to fix myself, to try and heal myself, and to do better. So that's a little bit about me. Here's what we're going to cover tonight. And we're going to cover some of the actual neuroscience behind ADHD. I'm not a neuroscientist. This is not going to be too heady. This is going to sort of be from 30,000 feet about why school doesn't work for many ADHD kids, about 3 common mistakes that parents make, about 1 action step you can take tonight, although there's no homework tonight, but just thinking tonight, like practice things that are practical. And then I want to end with just question and answer and let you guys beat up on me. Okay? So we'll keep going here. So this is where we really start. This is my 2nd grade report card. And I found this my father died, I guess, 2 years ago, and my brother was going through his endless boxes of papers and discovered this report card from June of 1980. I was 8 years old. This is my 2nd grade report card. And I read this and it hit me like, I don't even know what it hit me like a ton of bricks, like a bus. Because it described me until this day. And I know that's probably really impossible to read, but there's a couple of things that I would mention here. For example, Adam, where to even start? Adam thinks and feels far more than most people about things he knows, about issues, and about reality he sees is tough for him to swallow. Many of Adam's brilliant projects and proposals have fallen by the wayside. There have also been many times recently when he has burst into tears over his reading. And then finally this gem here, which says that I can only reiterate my advice earlier this year of encouraging him to follow through on every project he undertakes, that he may get a sense of the connection between idea and finished article. Does any of this sound familiar to anyone in this room? Give me a thumbs up or a wave or a here. Go ahead, take yourself off mute and say, that's my kid, that's me. Anything there? Okay. basically, the idea even at age 8, I'll say I was experiencing RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. I was looking at other kids in the class and seeing how they were reading, and I was bursting into tears. And one thing I think it's important to acknowledge about ADHD is that it's not just about focus. It's also about emotional regulation, and we'll get into more about that later. But essentially, like the way I describe it is that people with ADHD don't have a very good volume knob on our emotions. Again, we'll come back to that in a minute. But here's what I want to talk about a smart kid, which is that smart doesn't mean fine, and that we as intelligent people have ways of compensating, right? So, for example, for many years of my life, like without bragging, I know that I'm an intelligent person. I know that I can be charming, and I know that I can bend rules. And I've always managed to bend the rules. It drives my wife crazy because she's a rule follower, and I've never met a rule that I didn't want to break. But I've been able to get away with it. So one of the things that I want to mention here is that compensation hides the struggle until it doesn't. And I had my moment where that hit me, and it essentially changed my life because I didn't have the skill set to overcome it. Having a high IQ can delay the diagnosis by years, right? It can because you're getting good grades, because you're skimming by, because you didn't do any of the homework, but somehow you got a B or a B plus on the test, you think everything's fine. So for me, like everything was great until calculus. And what happened in calculus was I was always a very gifted math student. I just got it. And I never did my homework. I never had to. I just got it. They would teach it in class, and the very first thing I understood it, and like I would get A's and move on. And I remember what happened in calculus because I was used to not doing my homework. And in calculus, I discovered pretty quickly that if you don't do your homework, you are lost. So after a month of not doing my homework, for the first time in my life, I discovered I have no idea what's going on. I just don't understand. And I was lost in math for the first time in my life. And honestly, if I had been able to recover from that, if I had been able to do my homework, if I it could have changed the course of my life, right? I could have been math, engineering, who knows? But the first time I actually hit the spot in my favorite subject where I couldn't naturally thrive, where I actually had to do the work, I was like, oh no, I'm out. I bailed, right? The intelligence trap is my compensation package is humor, charm, social skills, and reading people. It worked until calculus, it fell apart. So basically covered all this. So a little bit more about it. Let's get into ADHD a little bit. ADHD is not just about attention regulation. Neurotypical brains prioritize tasks based on their importance. ADHD brains, we categorize it based on interest, urgency, challenge, and passion. So I once actually wrote a LinkedIn post that went viral. The one post that went viral was I said that I didn't like the term attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I don't feel that I'm hyperactive. I don't feel that I have attention deficit. I have creativity and passion driven hyperfocus disorder, right? If I love something, if I'm interested, I don't have a problem with focus. I can sit there for 12 hours. I can work my butt off. I can research like crazy. I can create. I can do so much. But man, the very first time that it turns into drudgery or hard work or things that feel slow or uncomfortable, for me, then man, I'm out. And that is a danger signal. So ADHD brains signal what matters differently than the neurotypical people. When the interest is high, our focus is sharp. When it's not, it is like pulling teeth for us. It's excruciating. The engagement is the key. And unfortunately, engagement isn't always there in school. So part of this is that ADHD brains have a lower baseline dopamine level. And again, I don't want to get too into science. It's not just lower level, it's how we process it. But when we don't have passion or interest, the dopamine drops out of our body and it feels excruciating, as I mentioned, right? So if you're ever watching your kid and you're like, why can this kid play 14 hours of Minecraft or Roblox or whatever, or has incredible focus for these things. But when it comes to homework, it's always like an argument, a fight. They don't want to do it, right? The homework itself is a low dopamine activity, which again, like in our bodies, feels excruciating. Maybe not excruciating, but very uncomfortable. We want to escape that discomfort. Whereas video games is a dopamine blast, it's a release, it's comforting, right? Many of these things. And I think you all, everyone, whether you have ADHD or not, this probably sounds familiar. We all, like, when it comes time to do our taxes, we're like, oh, I think I will wash the dishes, right? Like anything other than that one thing, right? We find these what I call off ramps, which are in a way comforting because they're helping us avoid the thing that's so uncomfortable for us. ADHD, we have a developmental delay as well. Research shows that children with ADHD often lag about 30% behind their peers in executive function. That means a 10-year-old with ADHD may function like a 7-year-old in terms of planning and self-regulation. And we will eventually catch up. I'm almost there myself. I'm almost caught up. I'm very close. I'm very close to having the executive function of a 54-year-old man. But the point here is that to have awareness and compassion, I think for the fact that our kids aren't trying to be disorganized, they're not trying to have poor executive function. It's just neurologically, these things are harder for us than for neurotypical people. So this brings me to something that I call the execution gap, right? And basically, there's a gap for everyone. But again, I like to say that people with ADHD are just like everyone else, only more so, right? Everyone has this execution gap, and you know what it's like. You have to do something, that one thing that has to get done. But there's a gap between knowing it has to get done, deciding to do it, and actually doing it, right? Many times we end up on Instagram or cleaning our email or mowing the lawn or washing the dishes or watching one extra episode or whatever, right? Instead of executing on those things. People with ADHD have a bigger execution gap. It's like when we come up against that bridge, right? And part of the bridge is missing, right? And what we need to do is rebuild the bridge, right? It's hard. Why do we face this execution gap? I call it what I call F loads, which is sort of like feelings. Like there's fog, which is like, I don't know what to do. Flood, which is like, oh my God, I have too many things to do. I'm spinning out here. I don't even know where to start. There's friction, which is like, this is gonna be a whole thing, and I don't like. We're all little kids still in the inside. Like we like. There was no moment when we stopped being little kids. Like we're all at moments still like little kids. Like I don't want to go to bed. Like I don't want to do my taxes. I don't want to cold call people. I don't want to like. I don't want to. So there's that. Then there's fear, which is probably one of the biggest ones. Like what if I don't know how? What if it doesn't work? What if I try and I fail? What if? So all the fear. And we have these feelings, and for people with ADHD, those feelings trigger emotions, and those emotions make executing on things extremely hard to do, right? By the way, I'll just take a little side note here for anyone who hasn't heard about the elephant, the rider, and the pathway, which is something I read about in the book Switch by Chip and Dan Heath. But they describe the brain as an elephant rider and a pathway. Essentially, your cognitive, your prefrontal cortex, your logical decision-making brain is the rider, and the rider says to the elephant, go to the right, and it goes to the right. It says, go to the left, and it goes to the left. And that's great, as long as the elephant is willing to listen. And the elephant is your emotional brain. It's your emotions, right? So if you're dysregulated and you're emotional and you're feeling all of these feelings of fear, flood, or whatever these feelings are, and the rider says, go to the right, and the elephant says, no, I'm going to the left, you are going to the left, right? So dealing with it, so again, I said at the very beginning, part of what's hard about ADHD is that it's not just about focus, it's also about emotional regulation. And as it said in my report card, like I cried a lot. I was always comparing myself to others. I felt a lot of anxiety. I felt a lot of fear, and I was crying a lot. I didn't have a strong emotional volume knob. And for many of your kids, you may notice that they seem moody or volatile, or that they also don't have an great emotional volume knob. And if that's the case, that's part of ADHD. And frankly, just to put this in perspective, before you can even talk to the rider, before you can even appeal to their rational brain, you need to calm the elephant. You need to be able to get the elephant just to relax and stop feeling afraid, and so like just understanding that human beings in general, and especially kids with ADHD, are our decision making, are basing our lives on emotions that we're not even necessarily cognitively aware of. And I think that if you start to see things in that way, it can be potentially really helpful in the way that you work with kids or even adults. So we have this execution gap, we're afraid, we have these feelings, there's this big gap to get to do what we want to do. Our dopamine drops to the floor, we feel uncomfortable, we seek soothing, we don't want to feel uncomfortable, we want to feel better, so we take an off ramp. That's when we start playing video games, or we go out and play basketball, or we start scrolling Instagram, or we're like, oh my God, well, I don't, I know I need to do this task, but man, the dishes need to get done too, right? So then you end up doing the dishes instead of that one task. So those are called off ramps. So what I want to propose right now is, like, when it comes to homework or other things, to be aware of this entire structure of how our brains work, but also to think about what is the next possible smallest step we could take, right? So, for example, and this, if you ever read Atomic Habits, he gets into this thing too. It's like, we don't think about, oh man, I need to go to the gym and work out for an hour, because you're like, oh, I'm going to be all sweaty. It's going to be so hard. And I got to go there and I'm going to be out of breath. It's like, okay, can I put on my shoes? Yes, I can put on my shoes. Can I open the garage door? Yes, I can open it, right? Everything's just a step, because once you walk through the front door of the gym, the workout takes care of itself, right? Before I even get into this, I'll just say that, like, instead of like, why didn't you do your homework, or is your homework all done, or did you finish that paper? A good first step would be, can you take your books out of your book bag? Yes, I can take my books out of my book bag. It's not threatening. That part's not threatening. That part's not emotional. There's no emotional part of taking the books out of the book bag, right? Whereas, like, have you done that project yet? Oh my God, I can't breathe, right? Okay. So I want to break this down. And this just, when I learned this, it was like the report card was like, oh my gosh, this explains my life. So I very often work with entrepreneurs, ADHD entrepreneurs, and thinking about how they can do more, because people with ADHD hate being employees of other people. We love our own ideas. We get excited by them. We want to change the world. We're always seeing opportunities and holes in the marketplace. We have these wonderful ideas. So we want to be entrepreneurs. And honestly, often we make terrible entrepreneurs, because we're distracted, because we're fearful, because we don't follow through. But here's the 5 stages of psychological stages of entrepreneurship. Number one, this will make sense in a minute, I promise everyone. But I have my chat open, so I would love to hear what you think. The first stage when you have a business idea is uninformed optimism. This is going to be amazing. I'm a genius. The marketplace has never seen anything like this. Watch this thing take off. Oh my God, this is great. Uninformed optimism. Stage 2 is informed pessimism. Oh, there's already 5 people doing what I thought no one had ever noticed before, right? And they all have more money than me, and they already have LLCs, and they already have a marketing budget, and they already have clients. Like, oh, this is never going to work. Informed pessimism. Stage 3 is like, I'm going to keep going anyway, but now it's been like 4 months, and you're still working on getting the this together and the that together, and you don't have your first client, you haven't sold your first product, and everything's slow, and you're in the valley of despair. And the valley of despair, yeah, I didn't make it up, but this is how it is. But the valley of despair is like, I think this is gonna die. I think I'm gonna die. This is never gonna work. I don't know what I'm gonna do, until you hit stage 4, which is like, you got your first client, you sold your first widget, you did your first whatever, and you're like, I can do that again. I can do that over and over again. And now you're in informed optimism. And you do it over and over again, and you continue to grow, and you hire your first employee, and your 10th employee, and your 100th employee, and you're at success and fulfillment, and you say, we made it. Okay. The problem with people with ADHD is that we go from informed optimism to informed pessimism. And we start in the valley of despair and we're like, oh my God, this is so terrible. I feel so scared, but I have an idea. Right? And then we go right back to informed optimism. And because having ideas feels so good, having ideas is a dopamine blast that it's like buying a lottery ticket, having an idea, right? It's like saying, this is it. This is the one. This is great. But the follow through, the execution, the bridge between idea and finished product, that bridge over the execution gap is made of painful, boring, awful, daily execution, consistent follow through every day. And going back to my report card again, it's here it is. Many of Adam's brilliant projects and proposals have fallen by the wayside. He needs to understand the connection between idea and finished article. So I bring this up because your kid, if you see this pattern with your kids, it's important as well, right? This is the smart problem. The smart problem is like, I have great ideas and everyone tells me I'm smart and being smart's going to save me. And being smart it's all about being smart because I don't have to work that hard. I can get A's anyway because I have brilliant ideas. And the trap there is that in the end of the day, no one cares how smart you are. No one cares. All that matters is, did you get the thing done that you said you were going to do? And so I thought this was an important thing to bring up because I'm sure that someone in this room has seen this in one of their kids. Like they have a great idea, and you're like, that is a great idea. Let's go. You can do it. And then they're like, 3 weeks later, they're like, it wasn't that great an idea, but I have an idea. And that is a painful trap for people with ADHD, and one that if you can name it, you can change it. So there we go. Did that resonate for anyone before I go on? Just say something in the chat if that.
We've got a couple of comments in the chat that it definitely, what you're talking about is definitely resonating with the, being emotional when somebody says, try to stay on task, which to your point is not very definitive. That's just work harder. It's not specific. It doesn't give them a place to start. And we've got another comment. Can you see that one too?
Yeah,
where
I
they're
see
saying
that.
that's just like my brother.
Yeah, I'm so happy to hear that he's through the valley of despair because that's really when most people just restart. Okay, let's talk about the problem with school. Basically, schools prize compliance, right? And this is not entirely true. Like I'm a former head of school. School can be wonderful. I'm not going to totally trash school, but I will say that school was not designed for the minority of kids with ADHD. School is designed sort of for kids to learn certain skill sets to be active members of the workforce. When you look at it, it's a factory model, right? You sit down and you change, all the kids change places and the teachers are there and it's like, the big deal with the Model T was that every person had one specific job, right? And now you have one teacher and their job is to teach science, the other is to teach math. And I'm not saying any of that's bad, but what I'm saying is the ADHD kids thrive on urgency. Here's a great way to put this. I read the book Drive by Daniel Pink. And in Drive, he's like, why do some people go through life with an urgency, with this drive like they're on fire, and other people seem to meander through it? He said there's really comes down to three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. Autonomy, I get to choose what I want to do. Mastery, I can spend a long time becoming a craft person, like doing something beautiful. And purpose, the thing that I chose has meaning in my life. And unfortunately, in most schools, we don't really care about kids' autonomy, mastery, and purpose. There's a curriculum. It needs to be followed. You need to sit down and listen so we can get through this because there's going to be a test at the end of the year. And this kind of mindset doesn't really appeal to most kids with ADHD. And I actually found this video. I love this video because this is a standard typical classroom, right? So in this class, who has the power to move their body? The teacher. Who has the ability to talk whenever they want to? The teacher. Who's clearly deriving what's important in that classroom? The teacher. And you see these grown-up children in this video sitting at these tiny desks locked up there. And even though this was clearly a video that was directed and not natural, it's perfect because this is the truth. You have these grown-up large children who were forced to sit in one place all day. And so for those of us who have ADHD kids, or those like myself who have ADHD, it's a special form of torture to have to sit one place all day and not speak. Again, so schools fail kids with ADHD because they're designed for the industrial era. You have to sit still and be quiet. It's one pace for all. It rewards complacency and rote memory, and it lacks urgency, immediate feedback, and lacks the essence, which is that autonomy, that mastery, that purpose, right? Like kids generally don't have a say over what they're actually creating or what they're passionate about. It's very rigid, it's very fixed. So ADHD brains thrive on novelty and movement. School often neglects these needs, creating a frustrating environment. Instead of fostering autonomy, it enforces rigid structures. This disconnect leads to struggles that aren't just behavioral, they're systematic failures to meet diverse learning needs. And this is one of the reasons like I became an educator and wanted to be the head of my own school, was to really push schools to be more progressive. And that is, I don't want to get too deep into education, even though I really do because I love it so much. But traditional education is the model of the teacher in the front and the students in columns and rows. And progressive education is the idea of like the teacher is not the sage on the stage, but the guide on the side. So for a progressive teacher, they could say to the kids like, "Hey guys, what are we doing in science this week? Are we doing rocks or snow or volcanoes?" And the kids decide. And the teacher doesn't care. They don't have like whatever you want to do. Like you have the autonomy. You can figure out the purpose. I'm a teacher. I'm going to teach you to help to read and to learn and to research and to write and to create. As a teacher, I'm going to teach you the skills. You choose what you want to learn about. So that's just something that I think is really important in education. Unfortunately, 95% of our schools don't take that approach. And there's many reasons for that, which is not in the scope of this lecture. So I want to just give an example. This is just a funny thing when I was teaching, and maybe this will be helpful to you in some way when you talk to your kids' teachers or just when you talk to them. But when I was teaching, I always used to stand up in the room and turn a chair sort of diagonally so that it was like a top. Like one leg was on the ground and the opposite back of the chair was in my hand, and I would spin the chair like a top while I was teaching. And I didn't do it. It wasn't like showing off. It's just that I need to move too. Right? I need to move. And so I was self-regulating by spinning that chair. And then I look at the kids and they're just stuck sitting there. It's quietly. So two things happened when I became a middle school teacher. One thing was, I would be really passionately talking about whatever was interesting to me. And I would call on the kid. I'd be like, yes. They'd raise their hand and they were like, "Can I go to the bathroom?" And I was like, God, like, so I said to them, "Listen, from now on, just raise your fist. If you want to go to the bathroom, raise your fist. I'll tell you to go. You can leave and come back." And just that one change gave them the freedom of movement, right? It turned out that like if they wanted to know what's going on in my class, they had to stick around. And kids were respectful of it. They didn't just leave all the time. But if they needed to leave, I understood. You've been sitting down on your butts all day, and you're a teenager, and you should walk around. If you need to get up and go, go. Two other examples. When I became a middle school teacher in the beginning, I was really awful because I had all this knowledge, all this wisdom, all these incredible things that I wanted to share with these kids and light up their minds. And the fact is they don't care. They don't care about me and my ideas, my brilliant ideas. They care about their ideas. And when I realized that like they're developmentally designed to be talking right now, that's how they learn. They learn by talking. And most teachers are telling them to be quiet. We're like stunting their growth. Often I would write a question on the board and then sit at my desk and watch the kids come in and then watch them start arguing. And I didn't care. I didn't care. Go ahead, spend 40 minutes arguing with each other. Just argue about what I tell you to argue about, not whatever you want. Because when I was able to release the control and understand, like they are learning by arguing, and I'm going to give them a subject for them to talk about deeply, and I'll come back to them. That both released the pressure that I had to control them, but also gave them the freedom to really grow and explore. One other example, and I don't want to focus on this too much, but there was one day I was in front of a classroom of students and they were being little jerks. Like they would not respond to me. They weren't listening. They weren't being controllable. And I suddenly was like, oh, I get what's going on here. And as soon as I said that, they were like, what? What's going on here? And I said, I'm standing here trying to be the adult. So you're sitting there being children. The problem is not you. The problem's not me. It's our dynamic. But if I wasn't here, you would be able to be adults. So I'm leaving. Here's the poem I want you to study. Here's my phone. I'm going to record this conversation. I'm out of here. And I left the room. And as soon as I did that, the kids immediately fell in line. They were like, all right, guys, let's go. They set up the desks. They handed out the papers. They engaged in a very meaningful conversation. Did they cover every single one of my brilliant ideas that I would have shared with them? Absolutely not. But they engaged on their own, and they were able to do it because they had the autonomy and the purpose to do it, and there was no longer a conflict. I bring that up because many of our kids have so much to share, so much to say, and we put them in situations where we think our ideas are more important than theirs. We want to tell them things. We want to share these things with them, not because we're wrong or we're bad. We have so much we want to help them with. It doesn't matter. Their ideas and their voice is more important than ours. That's just a fact. Oh gosh, I'm way behind. All right, let me just let them lead. This I sort of mentioned this, like make sure, like step back, let your kids lead. 3 things parents miss, common pitfalls to avoid. Okay. First of all, pushing harder is really hard. As I sort of said, like pressure plus ADHD brains is shut down, not performance. Many of us have RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria. It makes things very hard for us. An alternative is just like, let's do it together, right? So for my son who has all these learning disabilities, we sit down together and do the math homework. And sometimes I'm like, I can help you with this. Let me help. And he's like, no, that's not the way they taught me to do it in school. He wants me to be there. But if I try and help him or show him, he's like, no, leave me alone. I'm like, well, why do you want me here? It was driving me crazy. Why do you even want me here? Just my presence. Just my presence of being with him was enough. Right? And now it's like, do you want help? If he says yes, I'll try to help him. If he says no, I'm like, all right, your teacher will teach you tomorrow. That's fine. I don't care. As long as you're actually like giving it a shot, that's the most important thing. Number 2, waiting for motivation. Motivation never appears. Motivation comes and goes. Motivation's there 1 minute and is gone the next. We all know this. Motivation is not something we can rely on. Starting is what we can rely on. Motivation comes from action. Not action doesn't come from motivation. Motivation comes from action. So I said this earlier, instead of like do your homework, it's just like let's open the book. That's action. What page? What page are you on? Page 42? Can you open to page 42? Boom. Now all of a sudden, now we're taking action. The first problem's there. The motivation comes after action. Let's just try to scale down the size of the action so that it's doable. Starting is the whole game. We can start. One action leads to another action. The action will lead to motivation. But let's not wait till like, yes, now I'm super pumped to do my math homework. That is not going to happen. Mistake number 3 for parents is making about goals and not about the process, right? Getting an A. It's just that's just the end is just the result. It doesn't matter, right? And of course, we're trained to think it matters because you get a report card 3 or 4 times a year, and like that's a summation of all things. It's like this is a grade, and then they're going to apply to college, and they got like a 3.675 grade point average or 2.8. Like, okay, blah. But the bottom line is it's about the process. It's about the execution, and remembering that in the end, the world cares about can you execute? Can you bring your idea to finished product? Can you do the daily, boring, consistent, everyday work that it takes to bring something in your imagination into the real world? And if we can build that courage and that mindset and that level of consistency and execution into our kids, that is success. Focus on the process and not on the end goals. Here's a couple little things. First of all, your kids, our brains are not riding around in our cars like people ride, like riding around in our bodies like people ride in cars, right? Our brains are organs in our body. They're literally organs. And if we are not slept, if we're not fed, well, things start to fall apart, especially much faster with people with ADHD. Our brain chemistry is really important. So kids, make sure they drink, make sure they're hydrated, give them some food before you start, because if people are cranky, that's their F load, and then their fear and they're fatigued, and there's all this feelings, then it makes everything much harder. So like get some of the basic stuff out of the way first, get your kids fed. Second of all, body doubling. This is something well known for adults with ADHD, but with your kids as well. Like if you can just say, listen, this is the hour that we just sit at the table and work together. You don't need to tell me what you're doing. I'm going to be reading my book or doing this paperwork or whatever, and you're going to be there doing your work. You don't need to ask my help, but I'm here if you need it. But we're not going to be on phones and we're not going to be on the TV. We're just going to sit here and do our work together. So body doubling does work. And sprints, be like, you can do anything for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, you can do anything. Can you do your work for 5 minutes? Again, these are tricks to say, like, it's the starting that's the hard part, right? If you're like, this is going to take 2 hours and it's exhausting and I just don't want to. That's friction. I don't want to spend 2 hours doing this. Okay, can you spend 5 minutes doing it? Yes, I can do 5 minutes. We'll set a timer, you do 5 minutes, boom, now you're started. You've already broken the barrier. And continuing is much easier than this is okay. My mother basically taught me how to write. I had terrible ADHD. I still do have serious ADHD, but I'm like I said, I'm almost caught up. I'm getting there. My mom basically taught me how to write by sitting behind me in middle school on a word processor. This was before the days of Microsoft Word, and underline sentences that didn't make sense. And of course, way before AI or whatever else. And my mom would sit there and say, read that out loud. Does that make sense? And it was humiliating and it was embarrassing. So what she got right was she stayed present. She was there. She helped me. She actually made me a good writer. She kept me accountable. She actually cared that I did my work. She didn't let me fail out. She didn't let me not hand things in. The part that she did wrong was that, man, there was a lot of stress and a lot of shame. And I don't really know how she could have handled it differently. But I think that just like as parents to understand that your kids are going through things that feel very real to them, right? And figuring out ways to embrace the emotional side before the cognitive side, and saying, like I think she could have said, okay, here's what I want you to do. We're going to print this up. I want you to read it to yourself. I'm going to come back and then I want to see. But to do it in a way that wasn't like sitting there and making me read it out loud to her, which often felt very like embarrassing and shameful. Worked. Didn't feel good. All right. I just included some other slides here, and basically just like what's one rule that could make a big change. And I would just say, look, this is for everyone. I'm going to use my little soapbox right now to say, charge your phone out of your room. Do it for you, do it for your kids. No phone charging in rooms. This will just give you the ability to sleep better, to go to bed quicker, to not wake up at 1 a.m. and say, I just need to check real quick what the capital of the Congo is, or find out what the largest country in the world and with one time zone. It's China. But like just to do these things, like we're so addicted. So creating that, but also modeling that for your kids that you don't need this attention seeking device to be right next to us at all times. Attention really is the most valuable asset we have. And that is why things like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok are free, because we pay with our attention, and we pay a lot. So I feel like in this day and age, like declaring a few hours of independence from our phones is critical. And I want to encourage all the adults to do it, because it's like if we can put on our own seatbelt first and feel that ourselves, then we can model it for our kids. We don't need to talk about this. We're especially running out of time. There's only 11 minutes left, so I'm going to skip over this. I just thought maybe some people might have some thoughts about medication. And here's something, this is important. This is really an important one. I see that like a lot of things on Facebook or LinkedIn, or you're not broken, your kid's not broken. Yeah, that is true. We're not broken, but we do need a tune-up. And I want to just point out that like ADHD is actually like, it's pretty serious. It's a serious thing. It's not a joke. People with ADHD on average earn 33% less than neurotypical people. 1 in 3 people with ADHD is unemployed at any one time. People with ADHD live on average 6 or 7 years less time than people without ADHD. Like, it's a serious thing. The fact that you're here is incredibly powerful and important, and it's wonderful that you're here. And you're the last people, as usual, when we say these things, you're the people who don't need to hear this because you're already here. But love who your kids are. Support them when they need support and where they struggle. Both are true. Your kids aren't broken, but it is serious and it does need real attention. And I wish that in 1980, when Peter Grove wrote the support card and I was 8 years old, there was a thing called ADHD. I mean, like it was, no one knew it. It was already in the whatever DM, what's it called? DMH, DHM, I forget. But the point, DSM, thank you. It was in the DSM, but it was brand new. Like no one knew it. You could see the report card. He's screaming. He has ADHD, but there wasn't really a name for it. I wish my parents had seen that. I wish they had framed this report card. I wish they had projected it onto the wall of their room so that they could have thought, how can we support this kid? He has incredible capacity. We don't want him to struggle. But again, you guys are here, so kudos to you. All right. This is question and answer time. We have about 8 minutes left, and I hope this has been meaningful to you in some way. So yeah, let's open it up. Anyone have any thoughts or questions or concerns or insults? What do you guys got? And just go ahead, unmute and start talking if you want.
I'll go. Thank you for sharing. I am a former teacher for 20 years, and then now I am a therapist, and I have a son who is 10 with ADHD and family members that I've watched grow up and who are now adults with ADHD. So I feel like I have a sense of understanding. I have a lot of clients with it, and I can support my son at home, but I think what I'm running up against is kind of that communication piece with the school. So there are lots of accommodations that can be made on the academic end of things, like give him extra time for testing and check in with him more regularly and give him a warning, to let him know, okay, we're almost out of time. And I think that those things sometimes happen, but not often. And then they get frustrated and he gets in trouble when he doesn't do the thing. And so I'm really, and this is at the same school where I taught for a long time, private, independent, highly respected school in Kansas City, but these things are happening there too. So I feel like, how do I get the message across? I've already had multiple meetings with the school about it, and I'm just feeling frustrated. But what would you say, as an administrator, helped you to help parents and kids?
Well, look, I'm not exact. I think I kind of lost what you were trying to communicate exactly to the school that you're feeling most frustrated about. But I think that this is a beauty, like aside from the distraction, the actual tools that are available to these days are incredible. So, for example, many schools use Google Education, Google Classroom, and everything's posted in there, and the parents can get access. And it's the kind of thing where if the school has that school taken on Google Classroom, does it use that?
No, they use a different format that is similar to it, but
Okay. Well, so you should be able to get access on there and like to be able to track, but also I think one of the amazing thing is just to get your kids to start using Google Calendar. I mean, Google Calendar I live by it, right? I have Google Meets and I have Google Documents and I have Google Calendar and I got alarms and everything else. So, I mean, one of the things for kids is to start getting them to take these things seriously. And even if it's like, it might be you reaching out to the teachers in the beginning of the year. As a former administrator, I always encourage parents to reach out to teachers first because it's faster, more direct, and non-threatening to the teachers when you reach out to them, whereas going straight to administrators can raise hackles a little bit. But like talk to them about saying, my son has some executive dysfunction. We're really working on building executive dysfunction, on building his executive functioning skills through Google Classroom. He's going to be entering in due dates and homework assignments there, but I would love if you could check in with him on occasion or share assignments with me, or even if you're using Google, whatever, however you can share these with him digitally. And there's ways to do all these things. I mean, obviously, but just I think bringing teachers in and saying, this is my son is struggling with executive function, and these are some of the things that we are building out, and how might you see yourself supporting him in this way, right? And sometimes it's how you ask another, how will you is threatening. How can you is closed mind. It closes people's minds. How might you is very wide open, right? Sometimes the language we use with people matters a lot. How might you think about engaging in the system to help support his executive function? And now all of a sudden, I might do this and I might not. Let me think about that. Let me throw some ideas out there and try to get them on board in a way in which they see themselves as man, I get to help this brilliant kid build his executive function. This isn't just someone telling me what to do. This feels exciting for me too. I, as a teacher, have some autonomy and purpose. Everyone wants that. Thanks for asking, Alice. I appreciate it. Anyone else have any comments, questions, things they want to share? Any big takeaways that were helpful, maybe?
I will just say that your sharing of your own personal life really could be validating for a lot of people here. So I think just knowing that this is not a unique problem, this is the stuff that everybody deals with. If they struggle with executive functions, you can be very smart, but still very much struggle. So I thank you for being open with all of that.
Thanks for saying that. My oldest son, who's 17, texted me this morning. He's on a trip, and he said, "Do I have any talents?" And I said, LOL, what do you want to, is there a talent show? He said, "No, I'm having a crisis." And he said, "We're talking about talents. I don't think I have any talents." And I said, "Listen, man, you're a very talented person. You don't need to have a specific, you don't need to play clarinet to be talented." But what I actually said to him is sometimes talents are easier to perceive from the outside than from the inside. So for example, the fact that you don't need to be reminded to do everything and you never miss a meeting, to me is I gave birth to an alien child, and it's I think that's an incredible talent. So I don't know, just made me think of that conversation we said. Thank you.
And for everybody here, I do think this was a very good, almost part one of the executive function dysfunction stuff. And then next month, Sarah Kesty will be talking about executive functioning strategies. So this is kind of the behind the scenes, what you want to know. And you did give a few strategies there, but she's going to go a lot more into what you can take home and use when you notice all of these things in your family.
And you've got the ADHDKC teen also following up with that of what do you do when you don't want to do your homework? How do we work on that? We all know the problem is not that we don't know that we should do homework. It's about how do we bridge that gap. So I think in the ADHD teen group, Jennifer and Kristen will be leading that.
Yeah. And the kids always pick the topic. And with the back to school, it was a definitive, I don't want to do homework. How can I make myself do it when I don't want to? Which was a perfect way to put the struggle that these kids are in. So.
Well, thanks so much for having me tonight. I really do appreciate it. It was a pleasure. And my email's on there. If anyone has any questions or follow-up or anything else, they're welcome to reach out.
We loved having you and got a lot of good takeaways, both a lot of relate to these stories. And I took away from a little bit, and I think just only from also with my own kids, that I can't put so much, I need to support the school, but I can't make school everything. So school doesn't have to be their talent, kind of back to your point. But I also really appreciated this idea of, it's not about pay attention or work harder. It's about, okay, find the actions. So I really appreciated that perspective. I always learn something new, which is why I love this group.
Okay.
All right.
Anything
Thank
else?
you. I will share this with Adam's permission. Is it okay to share this?
Absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you. Okay. Good night, everyone.